Welcome back to the Overheard Podcast, recorded live in Banff. My name is Daniel Rudel, and with me always is my co-host,
Matty Rage. Let's go.
If it's your first time listening, don't forget to give us a little like and subscribe. We find about 70% of our new first-time listeners aren't liking and subscribing, so if you can do us a huge favor, smash that like button. It would help us tremendously bring you more episodes like this one.
No doubt.
Very special guest today. Our guest is Janine Windolph, Director of Indigenous Arts at Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
How's the day going so far?
So far, so good. Got a music program. They're all settled, so I'm feeling pretty chill today.
Amazing. Beautiful day here in Banff. We're actually in one of the music huts here at Banff Centre. We have some beautiful light coming in.
No doubt.
What a place to create. Before we get too far into things, we're going to check in with our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Drink Shaft. We'll be back with you in a few seconds. Banff hits different. Cold air, frozen mornings, and that brief stillness before the day kicks off. Fuel your early starts with Drink Shaft, the non-alcoholic, all-natural espresso energy drink made for mountain days and the longer ones around the house or the office. Find Drink Shaft in over 1,000 stores across Western Canada. Grab one before you head out on your next adventure. Remember that seasons change, but Drink Shaft, it always stays the same.
All right. We're back, baby.
We are back. Thank you again for joining us, everyone. If you don't know Janine Windolph is Atikamekw and Woodland Cree and is a Saskatchewan-based filmmaker, video editor, educator, fine craft artist, and storyteller. Quite the resume there. Her work lives at the intersection of community, culture, and visual storytelling. Before coming to Banff Centre, Janine served as the curator of community engagement at the Mackenzie Art Program in Regina, where she focused on creating meaningful connections between artists, institutions, and community. She also holds a Master of Fine Arts in Interdisciplinary Indigenous Fine Art and Media Production. Janine, once upon a time, was co-producer with Rise Media Project, Inc., where she co-directed the feature-length documentary Rise from Amnesia, Recovering the Lost Legacies, which explores the history and impact of the Regina Indian Industrial School. Her filmography spans roles as producer, director, narrator, writer, and editor, with projects including Stories Are in Our Bones, Life Givers, Honoring Our Elders and Children, Land of Rock and Gold, and Apiak Oma Nianan, Only Us, We Are Here at Home. She's also deeply rooted in the community here in the Bow Valley, collaborating with Buffalo Mountain Banff and supporting the Buffalo Mountain Video Project. Let's get right into it, Janine. For people maybe hearing your name for the first time, how would you describe yourself beyond your job title?
Well, I always share, of course, that I'm a mother to 2 adult children. Mm-hmm. So as I was building my career as a storyteller, filmmaker, and curator, I was also learning how to be a mom. So you find those intersections. Yeah, they play out in my movies. So they're my stars as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I got strong family support and just grateful for each day. Very cool. Try and keep a good attitude.
That's a big thing in life. You know, I think I was seeing some posts this morning actually on that topic. I'm surprised you brought it up right away. It's you kind of will find what you're looking for in the world, you know, and if you see doom and gloom, which there's no shortage of these days, you'll find a place to find it, you know?
Dan's a strong believer in the mindset, like, does it all the time. Bad attitude, but...
Can you take us back a little bit to when you were growing up? Was there a defining moment for you where you found that these stories needed to be told?
When I was young, I watched a lot of films and seen a lot of Indigenous representation. Mm-hmm. But I lived in the far north of Saskatchewan, so a lot of the culture around me was trapline culture. So we did a lot of our storytelling around the fire at nights. But when I was watching film, because I was gravitating towards the medium, I didn't see the representation that was around me. Mm-hmm. And so I felt because people talked about my culture like it was in the past, but yet we were living on the trapline. We're still hunting and trapping, like my family's still very active on the land. Mm-hmm. So that was when I felt that there was a story that I could help contribute to the Indigenous narratives that were starting to come out. And yeah, when I first started, it was a contribution, but I feel like more and more we got more narratives that show our resilience and continued activity to live in the old way, but with new ways, new tools. So,
Absolutely. Again, that was, especially with our time here at the Banff Film Fest last fall, one of the reoccurring narratives was exploring especially wildfires and mitigation, but maybe looking back at older techniques that were used in the past by First Nations rather than obviously what we've been doing hasn't been working. So again, I think it's very, very overlooked, the stories of our past, especially here in Canada, and how they've been buried and how it could be preventing us from moving forward in a more harmonious way, right?
No doubt.
How does your relationship with nature shape the way you see your world today or how you create or tell your stories?
well, I grew up with the values of Wakotwin, which in Cree means kinship. So that kinship extends beyond like family, and it's not only the people around us that we call our family, but it's the trees, it's the animals, it's the land. So having that ingrained in me at a young age, because I was grateful to be raised in community, you know, for me it was just a natural way of thinking. It wasn't until I went into till I moved to the city of Saskatoon and went into their education system that I started to really see how my culture was positioned as like the old way. And so it was there that I really started to see how important that connection to the world around me was. But it wasn't until I had my own children that I really understood Wakotwin values and what they mean by we're all related. And so I feel like that being part of me, it feeds into the work that I do with community, the people around me, programs. And so it's very much a shared worldview. We just have different words we acknowledge for kinship. But it's definitely beyond the extended or the nuclear family that we're so aware of. It's very blended and extended.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Kind of like our little community here in Banff. Like nobody's got family here, but we're all kind of still family. Do the Friendsgiving and Friendsmas and Freester, I guess, if if you're into that. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's pretty cool to see just how that can be in like a weird little small town like this. Just separated from family, but still family, I guess.
Yeah, community that takes care of each other.
Right.
I've been here for almost 7 years, and
Nice.
yeah, it's very rare, I find, to just kind of come into a new place and that framework's built in. And yeah, there's a reputation for transientness, but there's definitely those who hold the community here. So
Definitely. Back to your work in storytelling specifically, when you begin a project, how do you decide where to begin, which stories need to be told, and how do you bring them to the forefront?
Generally, a lot of the stories come from personal wish to share. So a lot of my family stories covered our relationship to the land, but at the same time, there's the relationship to residential school that impacted my family. But I would say a lot of the stories that I've found were, what did I want my kids to know? Because I know, they're going to watch these films that I'm making. They're going to experience the films firsthand, but when they're parents themselves, what are the messages that I hope that they received from the journey? But also, what is that story, that medicine that needs to be told? So I'm a intergenerational survivor, but I'm also a descendant of a missing woman from her community for 23 years. And I felt there was a lot of narratives that were out there that hadn't had that closure that we had. But knowing that that was just the beginning of the healing journey for our family, that one I would say is still on an ongoing journey. But that film took, for example, that one took like almost 15 years to be ready, but not because I needed to be ready, but I needed the people who were coming to the circle for that story to be ready and to have the tools. So sometimes if it's hard story like that, I'll take more care and I'll wait for that story to be ready and the people to be ready. But other times there's a need in community. So for example, you mentioned Rise from Amnesia. That was because we had a unrecognized graveyard of Indigenous children in the city of Regina from an old school that was once there. And so that one, in order to get protection, people needed to understand what was at risk. And so the film became like, how can we connect to a story that's over 100 years old and make it relevant? And it really felt like it was the site needing to be protected in the generation that were coming forward. So really, I just listen, learn, and the stories come full front, but it's usually what's the call to action is kind of where the stories have come from.
Amazing.
Very cool.
When you're working with stories connected to such painful histories, how do you deal with that personally? And again, you mentioned like waiting to release a film until the subjects are ready as well. What does that entail for someone that's not involved in that process?
Well, definitely, I worked as a statement gatherer for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and as part of the training, we had to become trauma-informed care.
Right.
Part of that helped me understand that hearing stories can create impact to listeners, not just those who are helping share the story, but just even those hearing it, and how that can either unpack a past pain or add, because they may not have experienced it. Mm-hmm. So for myself, I always ensured, like, what is the story I'm trying to tell and why? And I was always told, if you open a wound, you have to close it. You might not fix it, you might not solve it, but you have to take, how is the path forward for healing? So when I first started my career, I was really all about focusing on what was the trauma. But then I realized it wasn't about intergenerational trauma that I was actually interested in. It was intergenerational healing. Mm. And so by focusing, it was still in the same area, but by focusing on the healing, I was actually making sure that I was taking care with elder support, whether that's smudging or having ceremony, but also just practical counseling goes a long way too.
Yeah.
So taking the tools from both sides to just ensure that I'm also taking care of myself. Because as a storyteller and a leader, you really do transmit that energy. So if you hold yourself in a good way and you do the work, it can help support those who are actually being the ones vulnerable to tell the story, because you want to be strong for them. And, at first I was introduced to safe space, but then I learned about brave space.
Okay.
So, both are valuable, but I realized you want to push people to that level so they could be brave to tell their story,
right,
knowing it's not going to be easy. And so that took me a little bit of time, but I just take a look at what's the nature of the story and how can I support them in a good way. And I know some might not like the counseling, but they might welcome the elder or vice versa. So just knowing that you have those options are there, but I never have a one methodology.
Yeah.
It's really who's at the table and what they need.
I think, case-to-case basis is definitely important. I really love your analogy of opening the wounds and then closing them as well. Because I feel, especially in media these days, there's a heavy tendency to want to open these wounds. And because, of course, these traumatic experiences, they get attention, right? And that's something that kind of we navigate in our realm as well. Is like we don't want to take advantage of stories or people's traumas and kind of use them for our benefit in any type of way. Do you find that's kind of a place in media sometimes, or is there some place where traditional media gets it wrong when we're discussing these types of stories?
Well, as a storyteller, I was taught that we don't own people's stories. When they go out in the world, they have a life of their own. But we also, nobody owes us anything. We tend, as journalists, there's that, because I took journalism too, and it was like, somehow you have to get to the truth, everybody owes you something. But then looking at Cree narrative storytelling, which is where I was grounded, is that it's a gift if people give you their story. And what's the care that you're going to give when they give you that opportunity to help share that story? And so for me, it's all kind of medicine that we put in there. Early on in my career, I would say I was establishing my voice. So really, a lot of people wanted to unpack my personal trauma, my family trauma, just for audience ratings, because we were starting to, okay, now this is the narrative. Everybody's starting to talk about residential school.
Yeah.
And, it was, for me, when the Canada started to recognize it, that was big. We did want people to understand. But what I remind people is that we've been living with these narratives at our dinner table for a very long time.
No doubt.
And so we do want it to be heard, but we just want people to know that, it's not new. It's something that we've been holding. And actually some families, there is a silence. So some people don't even do the talking. So I was told to use my voice for those who don't. And hopefully that can help. But yeah, I think it's just taking care, and we have great allies. And I feel like the more and more people do work, they also want care with their own stories. So it's not just an Indigenous thing, it's a human thing.
Of course.
It's
No one
just-
wants to be misrepresented in any way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, we can all have a bad day and a bad life experience. It's not just an Indigenous thing, but yeah.
Tell me about it. Yeah, I can resonate with that a bit myself.
Like I even remember like growing up, one of my elementary school teachers is like big history buff. And like we learned about residential schools, like this was like grade 7, grade 8, but it wasn't, I guess they didn't portray it as truthfully as maybe it should have been.
Not even
they kind of
close.
skimmed over a lot of not great details, but yeah, it's just weird, like going from that and then, hearing firsthand stories of, hey, it wasn't exactly as the history books may have told it, right? So it's pretty cool to see people that are just sharing their experiences and getting that out there, like just real information instead of, just a couple of blurbs in a textbook, which is...
I think reclaiming the narrative is
Right, exactly.
is the big thing, right? Having Indigenous people tell their own stories rather than, like you said, having the story being told for them is kind of the main thing. When it comes to art, and especially when it comes to Banff Centre, how does it look in practice creating a safe space for all this art to come through? Obviously, art is a good way to manifest feelings, whether they be positive or negative, from the past, the future, the present. How does that look like for you to create a safe space for artists to come and express themselves?
It's really leadership, like faculty leadership. I do my best to set a tone, but I'm always aware that I'm also the director.
Right.
So there's a fine line between being supportive and I don't want to hit the micromanaging role. So really giving space and empowering our faculty. And then in that connection, because they are leadership, they're also, when you got good support, they ripple the values that you want into your program. So, I always think building your team is important. And then when people come with their projects, I don't have the pressure that they need to complete projects, because I feel like it's the process of experimenting, bonding, getting together, making mistakes. Like I'm really big on like that's part of learning.
Yeah.
And so it's really about making sure that people feel that that's okay, that they're there. And as adults, we also need to play and,
Yeah.
we just have different tools. But I think the main thing is, just having that support. So we'll, depending on the nature of the program, we'll get a knowledge keeper, an elder from the territory. And I always try and find someone who has a connection to the programs. Because if they're practicing musicians or even in their own form, theater, they can add and speak to artists in a way that they also understand, because they've also done that work. Because I will say elders and knowledge keepers are also people and have gifts as well. Yeah. So they're not just only there to smudge, they're great allies and friends too, to really help you understand. So I do get a lot of support from community in that way. And then, really just allowing the space. So Banff Centre's been really great. So for the Winagabi music residency that we have going on right now, they each get their own studio. They can practice. They get a lot of self-directed time, but then they also get guided faculty time.
Cool.
So every program's different, but at the end, I think the camaraderie for how they get together, you can see it when they come on these public events. So not every program has a public event, but if we feel like this is actually a great opportunity for their practice to help share those stories into the Bow Valley. We have public events. So this program will have 2 concerts coming up.
I actually have some notes on it. We did kind of want to shine a little light on that on the shows coming up. So there is one coming up Thursday, February 26th at 7 p.m., as well as Saturday, February 28th. Both are free. So an awesome opportunity to come up and experience a free concert at Banff Centre. All you got to do is register online. So go to the Banff Centre website. It's super easy to find. Get yourself some free tickets for Thursday, February 26th or Saturday, February 28th. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
And definitely you'll be hearing some wonderful storytelling through music. I think that would be an example of what Banff Centre can do well. These are works that they've just been getting together, collaborating. Some brought them forward in half-done pieces, but you really get a first-hand experience. A lot of them put their heart and soul into the stories they put in their music, so you'll get a good variety because all the musicians and faculty are coming from different places around the world, around Canada. So you'll definitely get a scope because we're all very different people, different traditions. So when you get that compilation of talent on stage like that, I feel like I learn so much. I just love to sit in the audience, actually. Just take it all in.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are like, for me, it's helping support and knowing what's supportive because in some programs, you don't want to give them the pressure of a public event, like a film. You don't always want to show a half-made film.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, I love that you said that because it kind of got me thinking, if you were brought here, say, as an artist to do a residency, there would be that pressure to come out with a finished product at the end, right? So part of creating that safe space, like, hey, if you don't have a finished product, at least you came and you tried and you did and you had the opportunity. I think that is probably the biggest key to creating that safe space, right? There would be a tremendous amount of pressure. Hey, I got this opportunity. You got to make something of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just ask people participate, be present, communicate, and I feel they do the work. In fact, I find artists put more pressure on themselves than I do.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't need to add to that.
Well, that's awesome to hear from someone in your role specifically, right? Like, it's a great mentality to have. When you first stepped into this role at the Banff Centre, what did you feel was most urgent in listening or trying to understand before changing anything?
When I came in, I had my predecessor who was in the director role. Her name was Renalta Arluk, and she was wonderful. I think she was the first one to establish the full-time department. I came in as an associate, and so I was really learning at that point, taking things in. But what I did see was because it was a new initiative to have a full-time department, the Banff Centre had to make space for the programs. Like they had the commitment, but really in a bustling, robust calendar they had when I started. Yeah. Where do we find these spaces for Indigenous programs? So because they didn't just say they wanted to do it, they made that happen. But, it took space, it took negotiating. There was a lot of long-standing programs. It took a lot of reassessing. But what it did was, what I seen was we just needed to communicate more, like collaborative planning. And I feel like we're there in my 7 years as directors. What are you doing this time? What are you doing that time? Is there any place we can collaborate? So that spirit has shifted.
Amazing.
And yeah, when I started, it was like, okay, everybody put their plans and let's figure this out. So yeah, we've changed the model.
Do you find you were getting like a bit more pushed to the back burner maybe when you first started, or your programs where you weren't getting as much attention and now they're kind of coming to the center stage a little bit more?
Well, I feel we had, when I first started, the stigma that, for the Indigenous events, because we do events and programs, everything that we put into the world, we really welcome everyone to attend. So, but when I first started, it was like, Indigenous events are only for Indigenous people. And I was like, no, we want you all to come.
True. I think over the last decade, that's taken a huge leap forward where you find a lot more not inclusion, but a lot more participation, we'll say, from the broader community. I notice, at least when I'm at events here in the town of Banff, definitely. We talked a little bit about the arts program. What other divisions of art are we dealing with when it comes to your art program?
Well, Indigenous Arts has a pretty robust portfolio. So we do cover all the disciplines of art forms. Just in this upcoming year, like we're going to be moving right into story sharing in May, which is about oral storytelling principles, but everybody's coming at it from different mediums, but they're all kind of, how can we do this in a good way? Take the stories and how can we move through it in the way that we're still holding respect to the past, but opening up space, because we're still active storytellers, we're contributors to culture, but sometimes we forget because we want to hold the past so dear that we forget, hey, we got to contribute. So it's finding that fine kind of line. But then we also have the Indigenous World Dance Residency. So we like to foster programs that help choreographers, but in this time we are actually going to hone in on the dancers. We realize we need more Indigenous dancers. So I really listen to the feedback of prior programs. So sometimes that kind of shifts each design a bit, because everyone's like, why is it 3.0? Because it's the third version of my design. And so for me, it's all good learning and adapting. But we got high tanning residency, which is really working with parks, because we're really, we have to work in tangent, because we're going to be, we did a few iterations. So we're looking at a bison this time.
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. So depending on what's like where the animals are at, because unfortunately we did have, was it withering disease, something that impacted one of the animals. So we had to ensure that where we source things. But the parks has been really supportive over the years, and in this last round, more proactive collaborating. So through that, we're able to build in the high tanning residency, which for me is really important, because as a living practice in the north, there's a lot of hunters, but it's hard now because not everybody has the tools to do the high tanning. But then we still have the hunters, and then at the same time, those who were doing the hide practice are trying to source. So I was like, well, let's put them together, because you need each other. Because my mom's a hunter, and she does not want to be doing the hide. She'd rather just give it to me. And so it's like being like, how do you pair community up and
connect people with what they want to do with the medium that is needed, right?
Yeah, because I feel like everybody's got knowledge and skills, and it's a bit fragmented from the impact of residential school and colonialism. So if we're sharing with each other, we can piece together at least elements. And, for me, it's just about being transparent and honest about where these teachings come from. But I feel like if we're communicating, we can build stronger. I feel like my kids' generation is so much stronger than mine was. So.
And how so?
Well, they can grow up. They got their spirit names. They went to ceremony. They went to Sundance. They didn't have to hide who they were at a young age. They could just be themselves. And that's even as much anime and manga they want. They could go to ceremony. So they had that blend. But, in my case, they were prepping me to go to school, which at the time, because of residential school, they worried that, let's get her speaking English, because if we get her in Cree, she could be punished. So they were just thinking about their generation when they put me in. So then I was the first to go to public school. And so there was just like all the learnings, like the culture shock that I was going through, but it was different. So I feel like every generation still, just because we left the doors of residential school doesn't mean that the generations didn't get impacted. So it was really about like learning and so I feel like in their generation, they didn't have to deal with the same things my mom did
100%.
Or myself. But at the same time, I would say that doesn't mean that they have it easy, because I would say with social media and some of the things that they deal with, like I'm so glad we didn't have Facebook when I was in high school.
No doubt.
Fair
it
point.
It was bad enough for me on its own. So
Well, it's kind of both ends of that. There's both sides of that, right? Like there's access to more information, but then there's also access to more distractions, and maybe you don't want to take the traditional route, whereas some might really be pushed towards it, right? I don't know.
Were there any, like, since you've started, any programs, residencies or initiatives that you'd say you're most proud of, like being a part of?
Well, the Indigenous fashion runway residency.
I was going to bring that up next, actually. I was going to ask.
That was like a dream when I first started, because I supported designers in the past and supported a fashion show in Regina when I was working at the Mackenzie Art Gallery. But when I came here, my predecessor, Renalta, that I mentioned, was like, I want you to meet Darcy Moses and develop a fashion program. And we dreamed of everything, but I realized, a program really can't do everything. So we focused on the creation part, but I had this dream of this residency runway component, because I felt like it's a total different thinking.
Right.
And so the fact that the Banff Centre, because they've seen the progression of the work, when I pitched it, it did sound wild. But, they had they have trust for the work, and they know that the impact's there. They could see the logic. Still learning. It was a pilot, so I think there's things that we're definitely going to have for 2.0. But I felt like that in itself, it took what normally is compacted within a day of a person's life in fashion, pulled it out for 3 weeks to give them time to really think about what they're doing. And for me, it was really exciting to be able to host that here in the Bow Valley. The response was wonderful. I still have people who say, I need to dress beautiful, even though we don't have fashion designers on here right now. Came up that, I want to look good just in case they're around here.
For sure.
But it was good learning. And, even for myself, I went and acted as a model in Calgary just right after so I could learn. Like, what did I put the models through? So I went and did it myself.
A step through, yeah.
And then I learned, okay, we didn't do too bad, but there's some good learnings I had. But the idea was like just to give the breadth of time in that residency and like-minded people, because it's hard to find other people who can talk in the same medium and discipline. And I found through Banff Centre, that's really what we do really great is convening.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
So just bringing them together does magic.
What's the hardest part about creating change over your 7 years here in such a large institution, right? Like you look at big institutions, big faculties, the thought is always that change is difficult to achieve when there's so many moving parts. What's your experience been in that light? In
general, just in any institution, Banff Centre and like Mackenzie Art Gallery, a lot of places, I would say it's the fear to act is the first one because you want to understand. But as like Indigenous people, we actually do things first and then learn. So it's counterintuitive to how I normally plan.
Yeah.
So I have to like really think through and so that's fine because, I find it's a collaboration. Like really I'm collaborating with Banff Centre with the ways I know and the ways they work and finding that. But it's the fear. But once you get over the fear, that's fine. We get green lit. So, but I would say it's more, the default, that's what I call it, is when you don't know and things are high pressure, you tend to default to what you know, which is actually counter to when you're trying to indigenize or decolonize space. So sometimes it's just comfortable, even as an Indigenous person, because I've also went to university and had Western training.
Yeah.
So it's like also taking that step to be confident and be okay that you're going to make a mistake, that you're going to disappoint yourself, because I do that enough, but I forgive myself too. So you can't forget to forgive yourself, but also give that grace to let others make mistakes and that it's okay and that you're always going to learn. So in my backwards teachings, because I'm backwards through my dad, is that mistakes are actually great teachings where we champion failure. So
what is backwards teaching? Is that like?
So in general, cultures move clockwise, and so you'll often hear the narrative that we move with the sun. However, there's a clan that also, as I would say, we've been misunderstood. So we've always been on the outside, but we move the opposite way. And we navigate outside of community. Like we're still there to help hold community, but we are in connection to the spirit world. So a lot of the stories were often negative in terms of what backwards people represent. But what I was taught, the function and how my mom made it easy for me, was like you don't just go around, say, breaking protocols, because that's how it often gets when you're going backwards. They're often, you're breaking protocols. But you should understand so that if you are, it's because there's a purpose for it. So my mom said, if you're all in agreement and you have a group of people, my job is to disagree. Even if I totally agree, I have to disagree just so that we're all questioning ourselves. Is this still a good action? Should we still slide from the top of Sacred Guardian Buffalo Mountain on our sleds? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But you have to have someone there just to counter mob mentality.
Interesting.
And then if protocols aren't relevant anymore, then it's also like, do we still carry this into the future? Because it served us at one point, but it doesn't anymore. So my mom was saying too, with medicines, we used to hide our medicines in baskets in plain sight, but we couldn't actually say they were medicine because we weren't allowed to use our medicines for many years. So the protocol of hiding, and it's still there. But she said that's because we couldn't be out in the open with our culture and our medicine. So it's a little different. So she said it's not that things are right or wrong. It's, do they still function for us? And do we still understand why that teaching is there?
Yeah.
So it's, a role that often creates a little bit of controversy, but I feel like it's probably what makes me strong here at Banff Centre, because I'm okay to learn and ask questions. And I think they've been pretty responsive. So because of the reciprocity built into the relationship here, I find it's a great place for making change.
Awesome.
And I've been in other places where, it's the fear that holds people back. So I'd say just get rid of the fear, be okay with mistakes, and then you'll learn. You'll get successful through those trials.
Fear is a very interesting topic, especially nowadays in media. Like there's a push to keep people afraid, especially if you look at major news sources nowadays. Like if you look at the news today, there's a lot of reasons to be scared. But I look at that and I'm thinking, why would they want to keep us scared? Right? Like in your day to day, when you're going to the grocery store or whatever, is that anything actually threatening your life or your safety? Like, I don't know. There's a weird push in media to keep us in this heightened state of fear, I think, to take advantage of the general population, right? Like people don't make great decisions when they're scared or, it's very interesting.
A little more irrational when you're absolutely terrified on the daily, you know what I mean? Like
definitely.
That's going to impact your judgment, decision making. Like it's just, I don't know what it is, but
putting the fear aside, number one priority, I would say. What evidence would you say points to that institution is shifting, especially since the whole residential school topic has been brought up, not just in language, but in practice? Like what should we look at other institutions that are claiming to be making all these changes? What's evidence of that?
I would say, well, look who's in the institution, for one, because the idea to work together with Indigenous people is a lot different than trying to work for Indigenous people. So if you have people who are in place who are guiding the institution or at least supporting and working in collaboration, they can do a lot more. Like I think it's, for me, I always put the best team together, so it doesn't matter someone's cultural background, but it's like, can we work together? Can we understand each other? And, I think from there you can go a long way. So I feel like it's really about who's at your table. And I would say that's the same for an institution, like who's there, and education and awareness. Like I think the more we continue to do that ongoing work, because even I'm learning as like an Indigenous woman who has a history, I feel like there's so much things that I didn't know and understand at the time. So I feel like if I'm humbling myself to say that I need to continuously learn about Indigenous ways of knowing and things that are happening, then, I think that it's okay for other people to humble themselves. So I feel like that's really important, is just having the right people who are okay to put themselves in a community level, but still uphold the values and what built our institutions. Like you don't want to become a whole other institution.
For sure.
But you do want to become in relation and connection. So, I will say who's in there doing the work and how are they training? What are they doing? Are they embodying it? Like at Banff Centre, when I came, you could smudge anywhere. It was like a big deal for me because I was at a place where I needed permission from the province to just smudge in my office when I was stressed.
Wow.
And that's such a little thing, but here, if I'm stressed, I just smudge. So that takes out permission asking.
Well, again, that touches back to hiding your practices. Like you have to ask permission to smudge. I think that's a bit insane in my opinion. Right?
Is there anywhere else that you might see like institutions maybe not necessarily failing, but coming up short when it comes to inclusion? Like any other examples that you could?
Well, with the cemetery project we talked about earlier, I think for the most part, I was dealing with 36 nations and
oh wow,
and so these were Indigenous bands. But I found, and it's the same for even the province, is like handing over the legacy when people, like when leadership turns over, it's like you have to continuously go back and advocate to help the new leadership understand why the other one supported. So I feel like that was really hard when I was doing that. But then I found that happens everywhere. So it's like we have a fear to do like succession planning. And it's not a bad thing. It's like it's the simplest thing. We write about it in our grants. We should be always thinking who comes next. Because, you know, I know one day some leadership will come and they'll take this role and they might take it in a whole new way. But I gotta trust that whoever comes in has the right attitude and can carry their own teachings. But I would say that's the biggest thing is just like succession planning, what you've accomplished when it comes to these reconciliations actions, because it's easy for someone to come in, not understand, undo it, and then
you're taking a step backwards instead of forwards. Then
so I would say it's just communicating and really creating guidelines, because sometimes when something's a policy, it only reflects the generation that made it. So sometimes you got to just keep the conversation going.
That's a great concept for sure. Banff Centre sits on land with deep Indigenous history. What does that mean for you coming from Northern Saskatchewan to Banff, and how does that affect the programming that you put on here?
Well, every time I open an event or a program, I acknowledge Sacred Buffalo Guardian Mountain. As an Indigenous person, Nehia Wasqueo, so a Cree woman, you know, for me, the connection's very real. Like when I came here, I could feel the spirit here. And it brought me and my kids back year after year. And so that relationship that's there is not just me. You know, I notice a lot of people come here and they don't know why they're attracted to this space.
It's true. We've talked about it so many times.
With plenty of our guests, like there's Banff and there's one place in Lake Louise that I feel there's something there. Like I can't describe it. I can't put my finger on it. But when I'm there and I'm by myself and the wind's blowing, I feel a presence that I just can't describe.
And so I was always taught, don't put your teachings in the past. So this mountain still has a frequency that does bring people. So for thousands and thousands of years, we were coming here, we were trading, we were hunting, we were foraging. And as much as people don't like to hear it, they were even doing arranged marriages, bringing families together. So there was it was one of the biggest gathering places. There's some other locations around Turtle Island or North America that have those stories. But this one in particular was so wide, like the Buffalo Mountain, that when I was in the Black Hills, they kept saying that the White Buffalo Calf Society, or these women and their teachings, came from a place where there was a mountain like a buffalo. I didn't clue in that they were talking about Banff. But they were talking about it like it was almost like not real, like an old story. Place. And then I realized when they did put the medicine line or the border, how much did we lose in that relation? Because we would have been navigating back and forth. So it wouldn't have been like this dream place. It would have been like, oh, Banff. But I feel like as an extension of that work and the responsibility is we're still hosting people around the world. You know, hospitality is a big part of Banff Centre. But helping them understand the narrative and that connection, I think, is really important to honor the Indigenous people who gathered, and, you know, having the cultural support come in from Minithni. So it helps me because they can help share the story of how they connect to this territory and their hospitality role. And having those narratives help people understand how special this place is. So when we do get guests from around the world, you know, that resonates because they also have their own sacred spaces as well. But yeah, I feel like we're still doing the work. It hasn't changed. It's just that now we're broader. But when you hear the music and you hear people dancing and praying and ceremony, like for me, that's a lot of healing for this mountain. And when I came here, they said that when ceremony came and they gave the new name, because before it was Sleeping Buffalo Mountain, which is what I had heard before, the reason why it's not sleeping anymore is because there is this, I would say, form of a renaissance here. There's things happening. So the mountain's waking up again.
Right.
I love that.
And so I feel like it's a good place to be and a good time to be here.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and for our listeners that might not know or might not be from the area, maybe don't know the mountain by that name, might know it as Tunnel Mountain, which is just some random name given because they were going to blast a tunnel through it for a train. But no, it's much deeper than that.
Well, I think for those that maybe feel that that presence here and maybe don't know what it is, like myself, it's a good avenue to explore. Maybe, you know, the spirit realm is very much alive here in Banff, and that's why you have that calling to this place, you know? How has being in a place like Banff Centre shifted your perception when it comes to access, privilege, and who gets to occupy creative spaces?
Well, definitely you feel the sense of privilege just in the positionality of where we're located on the slope. And that relation, you know, I think establishing that right away. But then knowing the artists that are coming here, you know, a lot of the practices do just hold that prestige.
Yeah.
So some it's like, yeah, they don't even have to say much. Like, say, for example, opera. It's up there. And I love opera. So, you know, I think that's a great program. But then there's some where you really have to, like, help people understand the power of the program. So, for example, like the storytelling program. We all love stories. But when you're talking about oral stories, yeah, it took a little bit to, you know, there's no medium. There's nothing attached to it. So it felt like it was like, well, that almost like kind of, not that it was a bad thing, but it was so grassroots that it just took a bit like, what do you need to make this happen? So thankfully over the iterations, you know, we've established that, yeah, it's oral storytelling, but it's how we're feeding into it. So I think it was like the educational part and helping people understand why these programs are important. For the fashion program, it really was like helping validate that designers or artists, because we see a lot of quick, fast fashion and the impact they have.
Of course.
You know, and yet there's people who are doing like a couture, like one-of-a-kind pieces, and I've seen them like with their fingers for hours, like beading, quilling, you know, the adornments itself, how they even harvest it. Like that's artist work.
Yeah, no doubt.
100%.
Yeah.
I really like that aspect of blending the haute couture with the Indigenous art. It's a perfect meeting, right? And especially that the pieces, it kind of falls under the same aspect of haute couture anyways, where it's one of ones, it's handmade, like all these elements are shared between the two. Like, why isn't it more represented in that space? It's a fantastic idea. Like, I love it. I love it personally. What does meaningful connection look like to you in a place that's always in motion? Like, you got people coming in and out of here. We're talking about meaningful connection. How do you foster that in a short amount of time for artists that are maybe here for weeks or months?
Oh, well, I do my best. Well, you know, I think the main thing is you have to just create space to, you know, to ground and be together. It's easy even in a program, even though you're with someone, say, for 4 weeks. But if you all have your own studio, you might not leave your studio. So,
Right.
you know, the workshops, getting people together, the events. We usually do a Monday check-in, like a welcome and a grounding check-in. Like we just make sure that we have touch points as a group. But I feel like depending on the medium, you know, some crave connection. So I thought,
Right.
you know, oh, the literary people are probably going to be the siloed ones. But actually they turned out to be a really like a cohort, and as my old colleague said, they move like a herd. Okay, well, we could use that analogy. But yeah, it depends, and you really get surprised because yeah, there's some areas I thought, oh, they're totally going to be bonded, and then you have to like pull them out a little bit. So yeah, people are people. So I think, you know, you create the space, you do their best, but I always say, it's like being a roommate for 4 weeks. You really get to know people, you know, who chews with their mouth open. Like, I don't know, just the little things. But at the same time, you really appreciate their gifts. You could see where they're coming from. It humanizes it and makes it more connection. But I always say, you know, if you've made it into the program, you were adjudicated, you're meant to be here. Because I find more people, because of that prestige thing that they talked about, they come and they feel like, oh, I shouldn't be here because of that. And actually what I love to tell is actually you adjudicated, you are with that. So you are the prestige that you're so scared of. So I feel like it's really just about building people and making them feel like they deserve to be here and have what they need and just be supported, and then make sure they understand that, you know, as staff, you know, we're all here doing our best. And I always make sure they know that as staff, we also have our lives outside. So finding good work-life balance.
Yeah, that's not easy to do. In
Not
town
easy to
sometimes.
do.
Yeah.
Are there any gaps in the Indigenous art program that you're maybe itching at tackling next, or something you want to share with us?
I'm really pushing this idea for Indigenous video game residency.
Cool.
That'd be cool.
I'm an avid gamer.
Nice. Me too. Me too.
So,
And again,
yeah.
underrepresented. I don't think, is there any Indigenous focused video games? Like,
Oh, well, there's the Imagining Indigenous Futures that was doing a lot of work, I would say 10 years ago. So they did invite me out because they were doing a video game program in Hawaii, but they only invited me for the first week. And it was all the storytelling part. I'm like, that's my background. But then they didn't have me for the latter part, which was actually the meat and bones of the program. So I always thought, well, I kind of got the start and I got the passion, but I didn't get to really
didn't get the follow through.
yeah, but I do know that that group in particular, one of the artists talked about programming their game in their language.
Cool.
And I've never heard of that before. So,
That's a
there's
way
just,
to promote language to the younger generation, right?
yeah. And we've had a few video game artists attend some of the residencies. One got in through Digital Constellations, which also kind of has like a broad scope. But just knowing that it's its own art form and needs to be understood, but also the fact that kids are looking down, well, if you want to reach them, then what are they looking at?
Yeah, fair enough.
And then I gamed for like so long that, yeah, they learned it from me.
What's your go-to game?
Honestly, right now it's puzzles and chaos. But I was playing Doom, the 10th one, and I got right to the end with the spider, and yeah, that's
Classic.
as far. And I had to give a break. Honestly, you can get tendonitis and stuff.
Oh, I've done it. I played so much Call of Duty at one point. It was like my left thumb, just from like clicking it to run. I'm like, why does my thumb hurt so bad this morning? It was like, oh, it might have been the 10 hours of Call of Duty I played yesterday. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I get you.
I'm about 20 hours into No Man's Sky.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
That's my newest. Yeah, I'm going to play space later for sure. What do you hope that the next generation of Indigenous artists maybe won't have to fight as hard for?
Being understood, that their value to the bigger circle. I think for the most part, I'm lucky because of the work that happened before me to create space. My hope is that they can come and add to what's already been built in a really good way because, I'm always imagining myself as an active learner. Like I think even when I'm 60, 70, I still want to be in a learning vibe.
Yeah, sure.
So I feel like, yeah, you just want to keep building and have those layers kind of on there. So my hope is that they can contribute to where their generation's at, because that's how I design. Like every program, I feel like reflects where artists are at right now, and it's from a lot of listening. Sometimes I try and get it right, but I think for the most part, it's also sometimes some programs aren't relevant anymore. So it's like making space. But my hope is that whoever takes it over, I don't want them to copy cut everything I do. Like take the pillars that make sense,
Right.
but like build on them and tell me where your generation's at, because children are our future, but they're also great teachers.
For sure.
And I feel like we forget that. It's not just a great Indigenous saying. We got to embody that. So that's having trust that there's things that are going to come forward that I may not understand or know, but that there's a place for them. And that's what I hope my predecessors did when I came, because I could scare a lot of people with my ideas. Probably scared like 50 of them with this Indigenous gaming thing now.
Well, it's a great idea because it encompasses like visual art, music, storytelling, language. Like it really hits all the all the notes, right? Do you ever experience moments of doubt or fatigue in your role? And if you do, how do you push past those?
I would say, yeah, I always have a moment. I think when you care about something, it's hard when you build something and then just not everybody's going to gravitate to, what you prepared for. So, sometimes at the end of a program, especially when, because they are roommates, sometimes there's things. And I realized, and it was actually a workshop that helped me realize I don't have to solve everything. I just got to learn to help support. But For me, I'm very forgiving of myself. Like when I said it at the beginning, that really is, I sleep really well every night because I'm okay to make mistakes and I'm okay with others to make mistakes. I feel people are much harder than themselves than I am. So, my goal is just what is the learning and what is the teaching we carry forward? Don't carry forward the mistake. Don't re-traumatize yourself.
True.
By not healing from it, but like, what did you learn and what is it that's going to make that a positive thing that happened? So it's not easy, but it took me a long time. But it was really, like, I would say I had great parents, and my mom in particular, when I would have those moments when I was a teen, she was always good at reasserting, like, you're letting that take your power away. So what do you need to do? And she's always, just forgive yourself, let it go, and then start new in the morning. Which sound like at the time, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Of course.
Angsty teen, yeah.
But yeah, now I'm like, like just to be able to sleep at night, I think is a gift. But yeah, coming back at it fresh and just, letting people share what they need to about their experiences and, validating that too. That's important too. So yeah, it's not to disregard any hardship. It's more like, take it in. What's the learning? What can you do for the next iteration? What's just a learning? Because sometimes it is just a learning.
Yep.
And then, just, at the end of the day, just send people home in a good way. And they're going to be with their families. And, I hope they come back and just know that I'm carrying what they taught me here and building better programs. So when they come back, it should be different, is always my hope.
Amazing. If there's someone listening out there who's maybe an emerging artist or storyteller or visual artist that feels like maybe these institutions like Banff Centre or where they can get support, maybe it isn't built for them, what would you want them to hear?
To keep trying. As a young artist, I don't know how many times I got turned down for grants, how many times I got like other opportunities that didn't really make sense at the time, but, I just kept going with it. I didn't give up. I let those paths take me. That's why I have so much different backgrounds.
Extensive resume, yeah.
But really, it was like, just following the journey, but also at the same time, I didn't give up. I actually just kept trying. I kept applying. Eventually, it turned into yes. And then same with, I would say, the Banff Centre residency. It is competitive and it gets harder every year. Like, our talent is amazing out there. It doesn't matter what background you are. Like, it's just everybody's growing and progressing and they're learning to speak about their art in such a way that it makes our jobs harder. So what I always say is just keep applying because, I've seen people who applied and then the next time they got in and they would share their story. But I found they all had that one quality. They didn't give up. They had persistence. They knew, I'm going to make it there. Maybe it's not this residency. Maybe it's the next residency. But I would say don't give up because once you give up, then
you really have no chance.
That's where your career is.
Yeah.
But I just never give up and I'm okay.
What advice would you have for, say, someone like me and Matt that are in media and want to cover more Indigenous stories? How do we approach that in a better way, and how do we bridge that gap?
Well, definitely what you're doing today, build in your storytellers, have people come. I always say I don't even know if Bruce Lee really said it, but that empty the cup.
Yeah.
There's so many memes that I can't tell you if they're real quotes, but I like the idea of empty the cup and welcome the new teaching. So, maybe it's not me here, but someone's going to have something that may or may not reflect my story, but their story's just as valid. And I found that's the hardest part is sometimes we're always comparing one Indigenous story to another person's, and then we lose like what is being offered in that moment. So even myself, I come and I welcome the teachings that are there. I don't worry that I have all these teachings because, I'm here as a guest. So I would say it's just being open, listening. And I would say too, like a lot of the events we do, like as an artist, we want participation, just like you want listeners, viewers, subscribers, like we want that too. So, I would say support, like just go on their Instagrams. Like, I feel like that's how you really get to know people. But they're also artists. They also have the same things we want. They want to be successful. And there's like everybody's shy to say, hey, I need more of this or.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, but it's just the best way. It's just to support people.
Amazing.
Very cool.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. This has been a great little conversation here. We do have one thing to cover before we go, and it is our new segment, You Didn't Hear It From Us.
Brought to you by Defending Awesome.
Brought to you by Defending Awesome. Some interesting developments in the Aurora Bora Festival. Did you hear about this festival? They're supposed to have like a big DJ festival at the train station, DJs outside, dance festival in the Banff National Park. It is unfortunately not going ahead as planned for this year due to circumstances outside of the organizers' control. It will not be happening this year. Not to say that it won't be happening next year or in the future. They're working out the kinks to try and bring a full outdoor music festival or full outdoor electronic music festival to Banff. So stay posted. If you did buy tickets, they will be issuing full refunds. So stay tuned for that. And that's all we have today.
As a selfish plug, we have many concerts that Indigenous Arts is hosting.
26th and 28th.
Yeah, Togawana Gabi. And then we also have Dre Zeus coming on March 14th for a concert. So
absolutely,
that's looking like a really fun night.
I've been seeing the promos for that, and it's great. Like, I'm a big hip hop head. I don't know if people know that out there. But a lot of what we talked about today is kind of bringing the old teachings into a newer model, which I think that is a perfect example of, right? I mean, Indigenous hip hop, not super traditional, but incorporating a lot of the traditional aspects of music and culture that we'll find. Like even the song I shared with your post, like as I was digging into that style of music, the beats, like they are distinctive. So a very, very cool aspect, blending old tradition with new media and new kind of, obviously hip hop. I don't know if hip hop's rooted in Indigenous tradition.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
They've intertwined learning.
Definitely. And a great way to kind of share those learnings through the generations, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. This has been an eye-opening conversation for me. I look forward to, keep diving into Indigenous stories and keep highlighting them on our show because like as we keep diving into it, we keep learning more, and it's definitely going to help us move into the future because clearly what we've been doing as far as spiritual maintenance, ecological maintenance, people aren't really stoked these days to be around. I think, blending, maybe looking back is a good way to look forward, So
Well put.
Hi.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, Janine. Once again, please like and subscribe. If you like this episode, we got plenty more coming for you. We're not going to stop. We're bringing you an episode every week.
Oh, heck yeah.
So yeah, like every week.
See you next Tuesday.